Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Rangers Review special as we delve deeper into the newly appointed sporting director, Kevin Thelwell, who will start at Ibrox in the summer upon the expiry of his contract at Everton. And to get an insight into how he's got on down at Goodison, it brings me great joy to say we're joined by James Pendleton from the brilliant Everton podcast, the Toffee Blues, on YouTube. James, thank you very much for coming on. How's it going?
No worries, mate. Yeah, nice one. Thanks for having me.
This is sort of came out the blue, I think, pardon the pun, a couple of days ago. Rangers have been looking for a sporting director for a wee while now, and Kevin Thelwell is the man. It was officially announced last night, and he will link up at Ibrox in the summertime. He's been with you boys for a little over 3 years, hasn't he, James? What's the overriding feeling about the sort of job that he's done down at Goodison so far?
Yeah, I think it's been quite split down the middle, to be fair. I think some fans maybe just look at players who've come in and that's kind of it, how well they've done. Maybe don't look at circumstance, don't look at the fees, the structure of deals, the wages, the players that have obviously left the club, the fact that obviously, he was director of football at Everton, so it was an all-encompassing role. It wasn't just signing players; it was about getting players out, working with the academy, getting a better sort of pathway there. Obviously, we've had James Vaughan; he's been the loans manager. Players have gone out on good loans and been sold for good money. Ellis Sims, Tom Cannon, players like that. So, I think it's quite split down the middle, I'd say. But I think personally, for myself, I'd say it's a loss for Everton. I would have liked to have seen how he worked next season with hopefully a bit more money, kind of a less of an issue on PSR and all that sort of stuff. So, I'd say relatively split down the middle, but I would say there's not too many people who are really, really against the job that he's done. I think, thankfully, a lot of people kind of appreciate it's been a difficult time, and he's really led us through a difficult sort of choppy water period.
Yeah, when he initially joined the club to where the club is now, is he leaving it in a healthier position, would you say? I know Moises came back and he steadied the ship a little bit, but sort of off the pitch and that sort of thing, is it the club in a better place?
Oh, yeah, night and day, yeah. I mean, that's not all down to him, because obviously if the freaking group didn't come in end of last year, then if we were still here with Mashiri trying to work out someone to take hold of the club, then you'd say, well, we're kind of where we were in the first place, in the sense that we're still looking for a new owner. We still can't spend much money. We're still, straddled with debt. Still loads of issues. But I would say we'd be in a much, much worse position if it wasn't for the job they've done, because Everton have been in the green for the last few years in terms of transfer spending. They brought in players on loan and frees, used that market quite well, used it quite smartly, brought players in, used them for a year or two, flipped them for decent profit. As I mentioned there, they sent academy players out on loans, and not just loans, but good loans, teams that suited them, teams where they could show their best football. I think I look at it again like Ellis Sims. I think he was up in Scotland a couple of years ago with Hearts. He did well there. Blackpool, and obviously now he's at Coventry, where maybe he's not best suited there. He hasn't done too well because he had good loans at Sunderland, for example. They had a bit of first-team football that drove his price up, and now it doesn't really matter how he gets on now. He's not doing brilliantly, but he did do well because he had a good loan spell, well picked, and I think it's all those kinds of things that he's really helped develop. And say Everton were losing the best young players, or they were sticking around way too long and leaving for free when they're 23, 24, which helps nobody. So, I would say Everton are in a much better position because of things that happen off the pitch. But I would say if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have even got to this position, or we would have struggled to get to this position where we could go and move on to the Freaking group. And that's what's been the biggest kind of factor. So, I'm full of praise for the job he's done personally.
Yeah, in terms of the transfers that he's brought in, of course, not everyone is a success, but what's his track record like in terms of bringing guys in and perhaps flipping them, getting a profit on the players that have been brought in?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it's a case that I think people just look at. Okay, this player's come in and he's been good, bad, and different, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Rather than the fact that, you look at Amadou Onana, who came for a lot of money, but 2 years later, £16 million profits, and he didn't even do like that well for the first team. And I sit there and think, imagine me coming in, dominated the team and been like first name on the team sheet, which he could have been, because he's doing really well at Villa, playing in the Champions League, top level of the Premier League, obviously. So that's kind of a deal where I think he did all he could. He came in and managers changed. Dyche didn't love him, and he still went for good money, So players like Dwight McNeil came in for, I think, sort of £15 million, but he's had so many big moments for Dwight McNeil. He would have been in a much worse position if it wasn't for him. People look at Beto, for example. He's had a decent year this year, not great last season, but he came in for, I think, about £22-23 million. But he came from Udinese. We were able to structure the deal over 5 years. Wasn't much else in the market at the time, and you're looking at a player who's probably costing Everton maybe, I would guess, £5 million a year, for example, in terms of the transfer fee spread over the course of the deal. And he's done well for Everton in that regard. Arnaud Donjuna came in on loan, didn't really work, but it was low risk, low reward ultimately, but it was a squad player. Players like Ashley Young have come in and done well. Obviously on free, James Tarkowski's been one of the best signings Everton have made.
Yeah.
League era. Even Dye came in the summer doing really well. Jacob Bryan, again, he's now working hard because he's got a new manager here and he's playing him more. So there's so many factors to take in, but I would say the majority of his deals have been good. Players that have signed and come in have done well. And there's been some smart deals in there as well, like Patricia Gay for £4 million. It's like he's been fantastic for 3 years and he doesn't show many signs of aging out. Hopefully he'll stay for another year. That'll be a brilliant move, £1 million a year for one of our best midfield players we've had in the last sort of 10, 15 years. Obviously, Lewis Dobbin went out to Villa and Timmy Rabunum came back, both for £10 million, like a PSR kind of deal. And they look really good and definitely had a bigger impact than Dobbin have been having. So, yeah, I would say in the whole, he's made plenty of good signings, whether it be players who've come in for free and are just kind of here to help us through this period, or the likes of Onana, someone like Yusuf Chamiti, who we yet to see too much of, but again, he signed a player there who's come in, he's young, he can do loads in the game for us in the next couple of seasons. And if it doesn't quite work out, he can go, and not a big deal because he would go for decent money again, I'm sure, because he's young and he's got a lot of potential. So I would say, on the whole, other than probably Neil Maupay, that's probably the only signing that sticks out, which is like bad, sure. But even that is like, I think, £5-6 million loss at the end of the world, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's reports as well that he might be looking to bring up a guy that he knows well, Gareth Prosser, who's heads up the academy with you boys, James, as well. Is that maybe a slight concern that he comes in and sort of cherry picks guys that he's worked with you boys? What do you know? What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, I mean, I think the academy set up at Everton was a real mess because they were doing well in terms of winning trophies and titles at those levels, but they had Dave Unsworth in charge, and you did feel like for a long time Everton were looking just to kind of win stuff at that level and build winners or whatever it might be, but it doesn't really work like that. We need to have players come through and play the same football that's going to be played in the first team, make the transition seamless, get them out on loan. And it really doesn't matter what they win. I'd much rather the under 18s or 23s or whatever it is, come 6th, 7th of the league every year, but we have a constant flurry of players coming through. And as I say, the academy hasn't done too much the last few years in terms of having players come into the first team, but it's made money. Anthony Gordon was obviously a big first team player. He's gone for a lot of money. Looks a really good player now. Ellis Sims, Tom Cannon, Shea Samuel-Smith went to Chelsea for about £5 million. A lad who's never played a game of senior football, going for a really good fee at a time when we needed it. Lewis Dobbin, as I mentioned, again, he's probably only gone because he had a good loan at Derby and he's shown some potential at that level. So, not a huge concern because I think everyone's quite happy to clear house a little bit and just kind of restart and rebuild Everton. But I think Thelwell, Pross, I think they are both losses in their own right for sure. But the hope is that obviously the new guys who come in will have people who can come in and build on the good work they've done and hopefully do better. So I'm not too concerned, but obviously it all remains to be seen, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, big change not only with Rangers but Everton as well behind the scenes. Were you? Is that a slight surprise he wasn't kept on? They allowed him just to leave upon the end of his contract, or do you think this is sort of new owners coming in and they just want a fresh slate?
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They may have come in and said, we really like Kevin Thelwell. Maybe Kevin Thelwell wanted a new challenge, something different, maybe even just to relax for a little bit because it's been a real hard work. And obviously going to Rangers is again going to be a big job for him there. But I would hope and certainly think personally that it's more a case of they want to bring their own people in, build house the way they want to, and that's fine. And they moved on Sean Dyche, and you sit there and think, if Everton were in the position they are now under Dyche, I think they'd probably move him on again anyway. Again, just to get their own kind of man there. Slightly different because obviously they moved him on mid-season and what have you. But yeah, I would have personally liked to have seen him kept on, see how he could do with a little bit of money, purse strings loosened, all those sorts of things. But then it opens the question, how would he do in that environment? How would he do with a bit more money? Is he better working with a slightly smaller budget and working within his means? Is that kind of his bread and butter? Obviously, we don't know. Maybe that'll become clearer at Rangers. Obviously, the ambitions at Rangers are very different, but I'm sure in terms of the budget and stuff, money Rangers are going to be able to spend will be similar in terms of what Everton will be able to spend at a Premier League level kind of thing, I'd imagine. So obviously see what happens there. But yeah, I personally would like to see him stay, but full of praise for the job he's done without question.
Yeah, and what's the sort of general feeling amongst the fan base since this news was confirmed, James, in the last just over 24 hours that he will be moving on? Is it split? Would you say amongst the fan base? I guess sporting directors. I know when Ross Wilson left, which was the last sporting director Rangers had, the fans were pretty pleased that he was departing. He's now doing a grand job at Forest. But what's the sort of general mood amongst the fan base, do you reckon?
I mean, I say personally, I think a lot of people probably are just like quite giddy that we're doing all right at the minute, and they will sit there and say like, it doesn't really matter, anyone can go and we'll be all right now. It's like, for me, I'm probably taking a bit more of a conservative approach to it, and I think he did a good job. And again, I say I would like to see how he did in a slightly different environment. And I would say it is quite split down the middle, and on the other side of people saying that they're fine of him going, there's going to be a lot of people there who probably think he's done a bad job. And you sit there and you talk to people who say stuff like that, and they say, well, look at Mopé, look at Danjuma. And again, it's like, well, one's a lone player who came in for nothing and wasn't played by the manager. You can't help that. Mopé came in, manager changed quite quickly, and is a player who had done well at Brighton and had always had good numbers, and he just didn't quite replicate. That's what happens. But again, low risk. That's kind of how it goes sometimes. So I think I'd like to hope, certainly when the dust settles and the season ends, and hopefully we can kick on next season, the majority of fans will see the good job that he did. And I think that's just one of those things that time will tell. But I'm sure he knows in his heart he's done a good job at Everton, and obviously spent within his means. And I say I'm really appreciative of what he's done.
Yeah, like you say, a lot of optimism around. What do you make of it moving to the new stadium and that, James? I think the time was right to make that move, and with Moyes coming back, you seem to be in a better footing. Must be a lot of belief amongst the Evertonians that you can have a successful campaign next year.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, it's really good. I've been to the stadium once for the first test event, so yeah, it looks really good. Just really need to see over full crowd, and still needs a lot of work doing to it in terms of homely touches and stuff. But that was, I think, maybe late February I went. So yeah, long time's passed since then. So I'm sure it's gonna be looking better now, and I think there's a third test event coming up with a much bigger capacity. So hopefully get to that and see what it's like. But yeah, a lot of optimism for next season, and I just hope on this rare occasion it is well placed optimism.
Yeah, well, I wish you boys all the best going forward. I'm sure you'll do it all right next season. You've got a good guy in charge there. So, magic. Well, it's been great having you on, James. Thank you very much for giving us some insight into Kevin Thelwell. It's much appreciated. Where can people find the work that you guys do, covering Everton, of course?
Just on over the Toffee Blues on YouTube, Everton Newsfeed on Twitter, I believe it is. Yes, plenty of work on there.
Top man. There you go, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed that. And we'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.